You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
All right, everybody, you are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast. I'm Joel Rafidi. I got my co-host Yerasimos with me as always. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. A lot of momentum behind what we're doing, and we're really loving the process of being able to put these episodes together for you week to week. Today, no different. We have another incredible guest, Sarah DeHaven, and we're diving deep into evolutionary astrology and the importance of divination, the importance of self-knowledge and individuation, and how these tools can really highlight for you as an individual who you are, who you were born to be, and what you need to do to start moving forward on the path of your highest calling. Before we get into that, our private exclusive membership community, Friends of the Truth, is now live. We're running into our second month. We had the incredible Jaguar Hart join us as a live expert last month. We got David Whitehead joining us later this month. We'll get our live teaching coming up. Also, this is an incredible value-packed community. Some of the highest quality, highest integrity individuals imaginable are within our community. So if you feel the call, come, join, hang out, get 3 calls a month, 2 live teachings, and begin to connect. And really the purpose that we created this platform for is to help you stay on the path of your highest calling, help you stay grounded and help you anchor to what it is that who you really are and what you're here to do. Because we want to see you thrive. We want to see the people who are committed to truth, committed to integrity, committed to authenticity, absolutely thrive. So you can find out everything you need to know at friendsofthetruth.co, and you can apply to join our community there. All our episodes are on hereforthetruth.com. A couple of weeks ago, we were fully removed from YouTube, so we're now on Rumble as well as a backup option. But regardless, we're available on all the other podcast distributors. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you're listening. It'll help us out greatly. And please enjoy this episode. All right, everybody, welcome to episode 92 of the Here for the Truth podcast. We have Sarah DeHaven in the house. She's an existential oracular guide to those willfully forging their own destiny. Along with innate and ancestral psychic gifts, she has honed an eclectic array of divination techniques to thoroughly comprehend the human psyche, to understand why it has lost its way, and how to bring it back into accord with the self once and for all. She firmly believes that everyone is designed to thrive in this world in a very particular way. But in order to do so, we must be devoted to the desire to know who we are without delusion, denial, or fear. For when one endeavours to accept themselves fully, to know themselves with ever deepening awareness, they are deemed worthy. They become attuned to their inherent navigational system, which affords them the ability to walk through life with sagacity and grace. With this in mind, Sarah crafts bespoke offerings that are specifically designed to recalibrate individuals to their very own natural rhythms, ways of being, working, living, and interacting with others. Sarah, you're absolutely speaking our language with everything I've echoed there. And I'm really excited to get into this one and really view, I guess, individualism through the lens of evolutionary astrology as well. So just to start, can you give us a brief intro into how you were first introduced to evolutionary astrology and how it impacted your life?
Yeah, I love this story because it's just like everything just happens in its own time, right? Everything unfolds how it must. And I started off actually working as a psychic, as a busker psychic, like a street performer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was using tarot and Kipper cards, which are like a cartomancy tool, like a card reading modality. And my mentor who taught me tarot also taught astrology, and I had to get into that because it was just calling me. So he taught me the basics of traditional astrology, which is essentially the sun out to Saturn, and like Hellenistic style astrology. Then I moved back to the Atlantic coast where I'm from, Halifax, and started training for the NCGR, which is the legit astrology guild. If you want to be taken seriously, you need credentials and numbers after your name and letters or whatever, right?
Of course.
Yeah, so I learned how to hand draw a chart, calculate it, and all that stuff, which I found fun. But when I was at an astrology conference in town, someone put me on to evolutionary astrology. And there was actually a book in the metaphysical store where the conference was being held by Jeff Wolf Green, who kind of crafted and created this paradigm of evolutionary astrology. And I was told, don't go there. It's too out there, even for us astrologers. It's too weird. The guy who created it is just too out there. Don't do it, right? You'll ruin your cred. So it's just like, I don't really care about that. What I care about is the fact that you are telling me not to read this book, which means I got to read this book, right?
Is it amazing that there's like consensus in the herd, even within like super alternative modalities and worlds? Like it's kind of wild to me. Anyways, continue.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I'm just like, wow, I've actually ranted about this before, just how you can still be in a hive mind but study the occult, which blew my mind. Like, I didn't know how that works. But anyway, I read the Pluto book. That's his first publication, Pluto, The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul. And that book, when I read that, I was just like, wow, it's deep psychology. It explains, why we came into this life, not just, oh, you're a Taurus, so this, and oh, you have a Cancer moon, so that. It's like, you have this Pluto, which means these are your vulnerabilities. This is what you incarnated to experience, and this is how you make it happen. Very much connected to natural law as well, like the law of polarity and the laws of correspondence and things like that. It just ticked all the boxes for me, and I never looked back. I went full in on evolutionary astrology, studied Jeff Wolf Green's a learning material, his school. I also studied with one of his teachers who has her own kind of like guild offshoot of his. And I'm still voraciously studying it because I want to fully master it, because I honestly feel like, in addition to other forms of astrology, it's just a perfect piece for people who are trying to figure out why am I here? Why did I have the parents that I have? Why am I experiencing the things I'm experiencing? And what do I do about it?
Amazing.
You're hired. I'll send you an email after the show.
Cool.
It's just so exciting when you come into like a modality like that, and like just intuitively all your senses are lit up, and you're about to venture down a path of exploration, which is something that's constantly going to give back to you as well through that process. If you don't mind, can you speak a little bit personally about your own relationship with evolutionary astrology and how, I guess, it's impacted you, and what has kind of echoed back to you in your life, if you don't mind?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I first got into astrology and I found out I was an Aries moon, I have to set this up, right?
Yeah.
I was just like, what? I get angry? Really? And it's hilarious because I've got Mars on my south node on the descendant. So if you know anything about astrology, it's like, yeah, you get angry. You just think everyone else is angry and you don't know why they're angry. It's actually like you. So I was like, wow, maybe there's something to this. But then as I studied EA, my gosh, like it really made me feel in a lot of ways like I was being affirmed for who it is I am, that there's a reason why I get angry. There's specific reasons that I came into this life incarnated with anger, with my Mars on my south node. There's specific reasons why, I keep coming across, like, for instance, I had agoraphobia for 10 years, from like the age of 20 to about 30. And it was severe, really severe. And agoraphobia is it's kind of like almost being like housebound. And I'd have panic attacks being in public. And I knew I was very sensitive psychically, and also had some psychological damage from the way I grew up and whatnot, like abuse and whatnot. And I was brought up to like live a life that was morally and ethically, and even lifestyle wise, very antithetical to who I naturally am. But I'm sure, as you're aware, when you're living in the world with people who are like in a herd state, sometimes we lose our way. And I certainly did. I'm a Capricorn, for instance, and I am very much like, I was devoted to my family. It's like, well, if they're telling me to be this way, like, I don't want them to disapprove of me, so I'm just going to adjust. The EA, when I looked at it, it was like, you need family. You want relationship. You want a human family, essentially. You want to get along with everyone, but you're losing yourself in the process. I mean, it spoke to my Uranus in the 4th house too, which spoke to like this ego fragmentation due to psychological betrayals from my family. And that was totally a thing. And, so the EA, not only did it explain so thoroughly, and will continue to, because there's just so much to see in a chart, what was going on with me, from a multitude of angles, repeating themes, explaining this using this EA method, evolutionary astrology. Yeah. It also tells you how, through polarity, to look to the opposite side and kind of grow out of your comfort zone so that you can actually manifest what's showing up in your chart in a way that we could say transmutes the impurities and allows you to access those seemingly, well, in like traditional astrology, for instance, someone would say having Uranus in the 4th house is bad. Having Pluto on the IC is bad. Having Pluto squaring your Sun and your Mercury is bad. These are all things I have in my chart. I'll say they're character builders more so if you look at it from an EA perspective. You just have to figure out how to honor your energy. And so it's helped me a lot, and it continues to kind of remind me of who it is I am and where I even need to look at myself. One other thing I wanted to add is just, as a woman, like for instance, I have Lilith almost 0 degrees square my ascendant and my Mars, which speaks to, at least from the EA paradigm, kind of like I'm here in a lot of ways to clean ancestrally the corruptions in the yin in myself, right? So these are insights that, yes, you can study psychology and there's a wealth of information there, but as someone like myself, I really just feel at home with this. It really makes a lot of sense to me looking at it from this.
Yeah, I love what you said there too, because it's like, it's great to get general psychological knowledge, but these systems, they highlight things specifically for you as an individual that there's just, I don't know, it's just pretty empowering and amazing when you come face to face with it. And I love what you also said earlier about like the polarity and looking to the other side. And we have this duality within us where, our personalities are the way they are because of lots of reasons we won't get into, but there's so much wisdom on the other side too. When we over identify with certain ways of being, if we're able to integrate the gifts from other sides within us, we can get this knowledge and we can become more whole. We can become more integrated. We can build our character because we're not just standing on one leg, we're standing on 2 legs, and we're grounded, and we have wisdom coming from both sides as opposed to just one, where we can be limited in terms of how we interact in different situations. So anyway, that was just cool. I just picked up on that when you said that and it resonated.
Yeah, man, for sure. And like nothing has been more affirming, like for my path and in my life than, the moments when I've gotten feedback from a divination system, whether it's terrascopic, whether it's human design. And it's just that gobsmack moment where it's like, wow, I already knew this about myself. I have always been this way. But then to have it highlighted where it's like, you were freaking born this way. Why would you spend your time trying to be anything other than who you actually are, how you were born, and what you're here to do? Become who you were born to be, Nietzsche says. And I love the link between psychology and astrology as well. I think I read somewhere recently, I don't know how true it is, but Carl Jung apparently wouldn't even work with a client unless he had their astrology chart in the first place.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Jung was a huge fan of astrology, and he reaffirmed that many times in many different quotes, from my understanding too, for sure. Sarah, so can you speak on a more of a basic level now, what the crux of evolutionary astrology is? I know has a lot to do with Pluto, obviously, but yeah, can you give us a broad overview of how that works and looks?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, if we were to like break it down to its bare bones, of course you can look at the whole chart, every angle, every theoretical point, all that stuff. But if you were to just distill it to its basics, we look at Pluto. We look at the nodes of the moon. Those are the 2 main pieces. We look at, and the nodes of Pluto too, because you can look at nodes for all the planets and they make heavy use of that.
Okay, what are nodes? Just for those listening, what are nodes?
Yes. Yeah, so nodes are basically, and I'm probably going to butcher this description, but the nodes speak to the future. The north node and the south node speaks to the past, but they're based on like what angle they hit the ecliptic around the sun. So that's like, we could say like an imaginary line that's like dividing the sun, we could say.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works. To see, this is why the NCGR would be like, Sarah.
You can't get a reading with Sarah. She didn't pass the test on how to properly explain North Node and South Node according to the eclipse of the sun. She's fired, canceled.
Right? Yeah, that hasn't happened already. Anyway.
Tell me about it.
But yeah, the North and South nodes, they're just based off, like, like have you ever heard like the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn? Yeah. So those are actually like nodal points for the moon, because the moon doesn't actually orbit around the Earth in an even line. It kind of goes on a bit of an angle.
Okay.
So when the moon hits the angle in such a way where it's hitting like flush with the ecliptic, it creates the nodes. In any case, one is the North Node. That's the future. That's the main point of EA. Like, it wants to look more at what's going on from a metaphysical point of view. So the North Node speaks to what's unfolding from the now moment. And the South Node speaks to what we came into incarnate in this life. So in anyone's chart, first off, we look at Pluto, because Pluto tells us what the individual incarnated into this life as far as their most recent, deepest psychological needs on a soul level. So, for instance, somebody with, we'll go with the Pluto and Scorpio generation, because that's like a Pluto-ruled sign. Or, yeah. So, I mean, Mars traditionally, but, whatever. So Scorpio and Pluto are inextricably linked. The Pluto and Scorpio generation define desire, the ability to transmute, and we could say refine the psyche from lead into gold. But they also have, because Pluto will also speak to the deep psychological corruptions that have accumulated along the path of evolution. When we look at the planet itself, like I said, it shows what the person's most, I mean, if you think about it theoretically, we could be living countless lives, or at least if we don't believe in past lives, we have it coded into our DNA on some level, everything that's happened up until this point, as far as our ancestors are concerned, right? So Pluto speaks to that as far as what's in your memory that needs to be brought up in this life, as far as what you'll be seeking from the deepest, most vulnerable psychological echelons of your being. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so from there, we can look at the South Node of Pluto to understand how are you manifesting these desires in the past. The South Node for everyone, and it will continue to be for like the next 1,000 years, because the nodes of Pluto move very slow, which speaks to understanding of human history as far as how we've been behaving as a collective and individually. The South Node for everyone is in Capricorn, shocker of all shockers, the control system. Mm-hmm. The black cube, right? So when we look at that, we get to see how we've been conditioned. Saturn speaking to conditioning, oppressed and suppressed, and how we were trying to get our soul's needs met from the scope of this construct of control. So we can look anywhere in the chart to where that is. We can look at the aspects from other planets, but really just looking at where it is by house can tell us a lot. And so one other thing would be the South Node of the Moon. Those are the main pieces to look at our past. The South Node of Pluto, its ruler, which is Capricorn or Saturn, and then the South Node of the Moon. So we look at that to understand the egocentric structure that the soul created. So that's basically your identity, the egocentric structure. The moon is considered the identity in evolutionary astrology as far as who we see ourselves as on the inside. So the South Node speaks to the egocentric structures we created in the past that we're still drawing upon in our comfort zone from our natal moon. So if we look at the past, we can see where we came from. We look at the natal positions to understand what's unfolding now, or what is here in the now. And then, we look at the North Nodes to understand what's unfolding.
So is your natal chart, obviously, if I went into any online software and pulled up a natal chart, it would be what it is, but then a tropical at least, and then you would interpret it through the evolutionary astrology lens. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. I just use the EA paradigm, the evolutionary astrology paradigm, and then also some other stuff that I throw in just based on what I've come across in my studies. But it's so interesting how much a lot of their paradigm aligns with practices that I've just been tooling around with and experimenting with. So it's largely evolutionary astrology. Yeah.
Cool. So how does I know you mentioned the control matrix, everything we're dealing with right now. What does astrology say, evolutionary astrology say about things moving forward? Does it talk about that, like in terms of not say predicting, but just maybe tendencies of like where we're going as a collective on this planet?
Yeah, from what I understand, they because the founder who created this paradigm, apparently he didn't even really create it. It was inseminated to him through a dream by this dude named Sri Yukteswar, which is like the guru of Paramahamsa Yogananda, which is part of why the NCGR peeps were like, what are you doing? But the thing is that where this is relevant, my point here with this is that Sri Yukteswar speaks to like the yugas, the ages. And these are thousands and thousands of years of cycles where we would have hit our spiritual heights. And right now we're kind of coming out of like the muck of the Middle Ages, we could say, and slowly creeping our way up spiritually and psychologically. And EA kind of speaks to that right now. Like we're just moving into what a lot of people deem the age of Aquarius, which is the steps necessary to move upward spiritually. And I would argue to say, this is just my opinion, why that's relevant is because Aquarius speaks so much to individuation and also remembering who we are from the deepest unconscious levels and bringing that forward into how we behave.
Yeah, I love it. Would you say Aquarius also speaks to potentially technocracy?
Oh my God, yeah, especially when it's distorted. That's the thing about EA is that they're always talking about what's the natural, because natural law is so important to evolutionary astrology. We're going to see natural iterations, but certainly because of the control system and how it's suppressed and corrupted everything, Aquarius is invariably going to express in corrupted ways, which would be technocracy, it would be digital IDs, universal basic income with your digital ID tied to it, friggin' metaverse, like all of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, like depending on how authentic one's path is, they can either diverge down the shadow side or more of a natural side of Aquarius. Is that right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's like also our choices too, right? I mean,
Yep.
because Aquarius is so, because it speaks to trauma as well, because individuation, you get smacked down hard if you really try to individuate as far as up to this point in human history, that's been the case. So it also speaks to the long-term unconscious individuated self. So it's always in us, that memory and even that realization of who it is we've always been when that Aquarius archetype, at least that's what it speaks to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you think about that, I honestly think that's why so many people are stuck in a herd state is because there's this deep trauma of like, they can't even connect the neural pathways to the possibility of, is it safe to do that? So yeah, it's choice-based, but there's also this emotional disconnect. Secret societies and also like exclusion is also connected to Aquarius too, like that kind of cliquish attitude. So we can see that when it blows out of proportion as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Trying to think where to go next with this. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I love that you shared a little bit of the backstory on how the foundations of EA were inseminated into an individual's mind through a dream state. It makes me feel good. Even I'm kind of a student of human design, and the founder of human design, Ra, obviously this knowledge came to him through a voice, like where the light was open and the door was open in his house, and then he walked in and the door shut, and a voice came to him for 8 days, and he was just writing shit down. So I was like, hey man, I mean, there's a part of me that's like skeptic with some of this stuff, and at the same time, hear you share this story about some ancestor of some Eastern mystic inseminating this in someone, and then this happening to Ra, and like it's pretty cool. Like who am I to say like that didn't happen? And at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. Here's a system, or both of these systems, that obviously have an impact on people's lives and help empower them to know themselves on a deeper level. So there seems to be this this field out there of knowledge, of intelligence, where people tap into it, or they're chosen. I don't know, and it's pretty cool. You know, these vessels that come through, and they go, okay, this is part of my mission and my purpose. I'm going to deliver this knowledge to more and more people.
Yeah, I feel like. Oh, sorry, Joel. Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry at all. Go for it if you have something to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, based on my studies, I mean, it's real interesting because I feel like everyone's like if you think about like a prism, we're all hitting reality at a certain angle, right? So we're shedding certain light and are able to see from a certain perspective. So I think if people have like certain energies line up, you can even see it in the astrology. If you do like charts together to look at them, you can almost see how they were like at the perfect angle to pick up that cell phone call, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
And
yeah. Like reality is so nuanced, and people can be so quickly inclined to like throw out the baby with the bathwater. Everyone's looking for a very simplistic black and white lens to understand reality through. You know, so it's walking that fine line between like, you know, reality, like rationality, and also like mysticism, and understanding that, you know, this crazy stuff does happen, and we don't understand any extent, like barely any extent of what's really going on in like the quantum field. But you know, for someone that's walking a path like just straight discernment, rationality, reason, they can be so quick and easy to cut off, you know, some of the more mystical aspects of reality too. So
yeah,
it's complex.
Even
it's complex.
That's even
reality.
Yeah, even like the subject of NDEs and near-death experiences. You know, I was just talking to a friend recently who 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, he like got into an accident on his bike and was in a coma for half a day. And he said that he saw the white light, and his dad and his grandfather were there. And his dad was like, "Hey, you can come over if you want." And his grandfather was like, "No, you got some unfinished business." And he like went back and fucking like, and he woke up, you know, like, fuck, dude. Like, that's wild,
It's
you
wild.
know?
Yeah.
And yet people are like, well, I don't know. You need to be hooked up to a machine, and we need to measure that to make sure that it's extra, and it shows up onto data fields, data points. You're crazy.
Yeah.
You're crazy. I know I wasn't there with you. I wasn't in the coma with you, but you're crazy, and that's false. Like, you know, so yeah, life is much more nuanced than that. So yeah.
Sure.
Anyways.
Sarah, I want to get this in clear language for the listeners. What is individuation?
Oh, okay. Let me try that one. Yeah, I honestly think that individuation is accepting yourself and being that, but it's actually a process of self-discovery. Michael Tessarian speaks of one process that's very important, and that's the apophatic approach. I think for a lot of people that is very useful. Some people just come out of the gate knowing, and they're here to shine, and they don't really need a hand with that, but a lot of us need to kind of remember who it is that we are through realizing what we're not.
Yeah.
You know, and that speaks to the Libra Aries polarity, where Aries is instinctive, initiated action. I'm not thinking about you, I'm just doing the thing. And Libra is observing and wanting to relate. So it's just that whole, like with Libra, they can lose themselves, right? I'm part of the Pluto and Libra generation. That's one of our issues, is that we desire so much to be in equanimity and harmony in all things that we can literally just be whatever it is we need to be for someone else, so that everything's hunky-dory, except that it never really is, right? But it, you know, it can be a thing. But I do think everyone carries all of the archetypes in them, and on some level, just through the nature of like in EA, they talk about the natural zodiac, how we all embody these archetypes in different ways, regardless of where our planets show up and things like that. Everyone's going to be relating with other people. Everyone's going to be initiating action instinctually on some level. So yeah, it's, I think as far as individuation goes, though, it's who we are as an individual is someone we've always been. We were born that way. We were always somebody that, you know, and it's someone very unique and particular. The interesting thing about how we interface with reality is this is the mind fuck that I've come across over the years of studying this and observing people, is that everyone interfaces with this reality in a very unique and particular way. And when I say that, that's just not some like fluffy shit to say, like, pardon my language. It's just, it's true. If you observe people some people can say and do things, and another person tries to emulate that, and it's for one person's success and catastrophe for another. To me, it just speaks to, like you guys were saying, just about this reality being nuanced. I think that, that barely begins to describe what the heck all of this even really is. It really is a construct of consciousness. So coming to our tuned, as far as our tone goes, that's
Totally.
indication, right?
Yeah. Also, I love how you said "excuse my language" after you said "shit," but not after you said "fuck." So I think
Is that a Canadian thing?
So I know the hierarchy of curse words where they lie in Sarah's psyche right now.
Yeah.
It's all good.
That's hilarious,
I
man.
love
But
it.
like, know thyself, right? Isn't that really
Yeah.
the only pathway to really understanding how you're meant to interface with this reality? And it's obviously a lot easier said than done, know thyself, but through these various tools, we can really begin to hone in who we actually are as an individual. We all have unique ways of being and responding to life and to reality. But like we mentioned, through the herd mentality, we're so conditioned to try emulate others and copy their path to success and their path to happiness and fulfillment, and whatnot. But like you mentioned, like the apathetic process of discovering what doesn't work. But what if like an individual doesn't have the intuitive senses to realize that, hey, I'm coming up against a brick wall and this isn't work this isn't working for me, but I'm going to keep trying anyway. Like I feel like many people can get stuck there.
Yeah, I have all the Aries Mars, so I know exactly what that's like. Going head first at everything and then just figuring out, oh wait, maybe if I don't do that and try something else. Sometimes we have to, I think, if you think about evolution and how long it takes for things to change, I don't think that humanity would take as long as it does to change if there wasn't so much manipulation happening, that I want to say. But at the same time, it's still a slow process. And so, for some people who may not be connected to their intuition for whatever reason that is, that's where Mars comes in from evolutionary astrology. Mars will always, even if it looks like you've never failed. You're figuring out how to get what the soul wants. Mars is basically the action taking faculty for Pluto, right? So even if it seems like you're making mistakes, even if you invite violence into your life or something blows up in your face, maybe even quite literally in a lot of ways, we're always figuring out how to recalibrate. So the best thing I would advise to anybody who's struggling with their intuition, if they're still struggling even after studying themselves using wonderful modalities like human design, tarot, gene keys, astrology, like all of the things, I Ching, like there's a lot out there. Even psychology, of course, too. If they're still struggling, then I would just say be patient with yourself and kind with yourself and let yourself figure it out, right? Like listen to your body too. That's a big piece. That one that I forgot to mention is developing somatic awareness, because that increases your intuition as well.
Yeah, that was what I was going to highlight. Even I feel like I come across this with human design, where it's like people have their inner authority, which is their appropriate way to make decisions. But what if they haven't done the somatic work? What if they're highly traumatized and their nervous system is dysregulated? Like how do you take advantage of this knowledge that's there in your chart in terms of who you're born to be when you're completely dysregulated? So sometimes I feel like there has to be some foundational somatic work or start eating healthy or being in a different environment in order to be able to hear this intuition or align more with that person you are meant to be or born to be. Now again, some of this might be also highlighted in your chart too, on why that may be challenging or why certain traumas impacted you in a certain way. And that's what I find interesting about these systems or astrology, where it's like, okay, well, people can have these similar experiences or experience these similar events, but then certain things stick on certain people in a way that they won't on others. And so does evolutionary astrology go into that at all in terms of how, let's say, a trauma is going to impact you versus maybe someone else who has a different kind of alignment in their chart?
Yeah, it totally does. That's part of why I love it, because one of the things that, when I was really in a state of, we'll just say well, I've mentioned it before pretty openly. Like I was pretty high on the sociopathic level, because that's just how I thought you lived. Everyone around me was like that. So I just thought that's what you do. And one of my favorite things is, it's always been, and I think it's inherent to me, honestly, if you look at my chart, I love to dig and figure out what the hell's going on in the psyche of me or whoever I'm interested in. And that's why I love EA, because you can dig right down. And of course, with great power comes great responsibility and all that. But it can tell you that. It can tell you how and why the trauma is sticking to you the way it is, how it's going to affect your body, how it'll affect your psyche, how it has been, and most importantly, from there, what to do about it. It tells you how to handle it your way, right? Because for some people, and this is one of the controversial things that I feel like, I mean, some people have differing opinion, but for instance, my stance on addictions is very different than most people. I honestly think that depending on the person, sometimes they need to experience certain addictions to their full so that they can get context and move through it. But for another person, that may not be appropriate. The chart can actually show this. And of course, that is like, I wouldn't be going around telling everyone, if you're smoking meth, you should keep smoking meth or something. But what I'm saying is if someone has something that they're having difficulty shedding, sometimes because of the nature of the soul and that deep desire, sometimes that is like some sort of a placeholder that's getting them what they need until they figure out, like on a somatic and even like metaphysical level, the subconscious comes to realize, oh, wait, that's not working for me. I need to exhaust that desire, so to speak, and move on. But yeah, you can see all sorts. Yeah.
That's discernment building, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like ultimately that individual has to have the experience the way they need to have the experience for them to develop the wisdom to be like, okay, now I realize that that's not the path for me.
This is what,
yeah.
let's say this is why I'm such a fan of such an individualized approach to working with someone, and having these tools and this knowledge highlights that, as opposed to like, okay, everyone, you have to live your life this way and do these things, and addiction is bad, and well, XYZ, whereas EA or something else can highlight something that's really unique that's going to work for you and might not work for someone else. And I think this is the approach that I think more and more people are open to, and they're hungry to experience, is like, man, like, I'm a unique person. Like, just, I know that class or that book worked for you, but it doesn't resonate with me. So I need to go on my path, and I need to figure out what it is for me that's going to support me to deal with this issue that I've dealt with for 3 decades.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I think about just how uniquely suited people are to thrive, like not just eke out an existence, but actually thrive and contribute to the collective. It blows my mind how many people don't realize, but it's not a surprise at the same time, because the spell has been so effective. Though at the same time, Neptune being in Pisces is kind of an interesting transit, because it's been so disillusioning for people to see, wait a second, this paradigm doesn't work anymore. And I mean, even your most quote unquote average person is coming to realize that the way of life that most have considered to be normal for so long just doesn't offer happiness and even stability or security anymore. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had a friend of mine just the other day again who was telling me how for the last 2-3 years he's been trying to share about things that are going on in the world from his perspective, and he's got relatives like parents and siblings that are doctors, and they just like won't even take anything in. And then he just hit me up recently and was like, they actually gave me the space to share everything that I know and my views and my thoughts. And he was like, yeah, my mom was like, oh, that's very interesting. Maybe you can tell me more. So like, it's cool. I think there are more people, like, again, I'm not going to sit there and say like there's going to be this mass awakening, but there are more individuals that I think are seeing like there are these cracks where they're like, something is off. Like, what the news is telling us, what my education told me, like, is just weird. And so that's what excites me, because this is obviously this is the business we're in. This is the thing that I've been into for so long, is truth, inner truth, outer truth, and how to support people to or guide people towards that. So I think it's kind of exciting. And based on what you said too, it's just like more people are, I think, a little bit more open. I'm not saying everyone. Obviously, there are people that I don't know in this lifetime if they're gonna, have their come to Jesus moment about things happening in the world, or presidents, or the globalist elites, et cetera, et cetera. But hey, or even just in their own life, in terms of like, fuck, I've been doing this job for 30, 40 years. I'm miserable. I'm in this relationship. I hate it. Like, let me change it.
Yeah.
And deal with whatever comes with that, which obviously the more you stuff things under the rug and ignore, that moment of awakening is most likely going to be pretty fucking
Brutal.
intense,
Yeah. There's huge fucking cracks, bro. There are huge cracks propping up all over the place, I reckon. And there's many people beginning to fall through now and realizing the illusion that they've been living in. And I think more and more people are beginning to reclaim the mystery of who the hell they are in the first place. No one, there's, especially with the age of information, which I think is another Aquarius thing, and the rise of the internet and whatnot. There's just so much more capacity and capability to open the walls, to broaden your horizons, to no longer be stuck in that cubicle and just live out a mundane existence for their, for the majority of their life. So to me, it's very exciting personally.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I definitely think super excited over it.
Yeah, and I think it's super exciting for individuals that first of all know themselves, like aren't living in fear, and know that like the time is ripe now for you to really embody like what you came here to do, and to be curious about it. And that's what we're psyched about, Joel and I, with our platform, with our coaching program, everything we do is like we want those people that are seeking truth, that really want to rise above, that want to just know themselves on the deepest levels and start doing the things that are in alignment with what their soul came here to experience, that light them up, that excite them, that make them feel honored and recognized. And that's exciting. I love dealing with people in that manner, and having these kinds of conversations, because this is cool. All this knowledge, all this information, astrology, numerology. Like, I'm not saying I'm an expert. I know a little bit about certain things, but like my life, I don't think would be what it is right now if these tools like human design, like the cards based on playing cards, numerology, astrology, like they all they shine a light about different things that made me look in the mirror and be like, oh fuck, it totally makes sense why I'm so badass at that, or why that shit's hard, or why this is a challenge. And it just allows you to kind of zero in and really hold space for that within yourself, to just be like, okay, cool, I know myself, I got to work on this. Oh, this makes sense why this is a little bit of a challenge. I can kind of own it more instead of being the victim to it in my own mind, and then see where that takes you. So again, like, you don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, like Joel said. But this is knowledge, this is information. Take what lands for you, what resonates, at a certain time in your life, and that guides you more internally. And anything that guides you to empower yourself and to own yourself and to love yourself more, I'm fucking all for,
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. I mean, I don't think I'd be even close to where I am now without these tools, because like I was saying, like you were talking about people built like without intuition, how do they navigate? I mean, for me, like it's interesting how my intuition works for certain things, but not so well with others. And one of them is tapping into like my inner guidance system as far as like moral and ethical choices are concerned. Because of the nature of this type of Scorpio contacts I have, and the life that I grew up in, and like spending so much time building neural pathways that were built to behaving certain ways. Like for a long time, my practice was, what's the right thing to do here? How do I do the right thing? And it's interesting because part of me innately knows what the right thing to do is, but I have a body reaction that's different too. So it can get very confusing. Wires get crossed, right? And so divination to me, I mean, I love using tarot and I Ching to get straight on like what to do as far as what's the right choice to make, so that I'm not just bettering my own situation, but doing something that is actually like, we could say, nourishing for the whole situation that's unfolding for everyone. I can't recommend divination enough to people who want to increase their spiritual awareness and their intuitive abilities. It's just, astrology is one thing, but it's a little more technical, though there's intuition involved. Having the feedback that cards and dice, or like I Ching in this case, like for me, I mean, whatever it is, whatever works for you, as long as you're getting an honest answer back, that is priceless.
Tarot has never not blown my mind. I've studied in Michael Tsarian's mystery school as well, and I used to read professionally too. But every single time you pull a card, like there's almost like how on point a reading is in terms of how specific it can be to the question. It's just every single time I've ever done it, it's just always blown my mind. And I've got this little story. I mean, last year there was a break in Australia in between lockdowns, and my friend and his partner came to me, and they wanted to. She's from Canada, and they wanted to move back to Canada. This was before all the shit really went down in Canada. And he's like, "Bro, I want you to pull a card for us. Should we move to Canada?" And I pulled a card. Literally, I got the Tower. Right, like it could not have been any more on point. Like, bro, do not move to Canada. Then he's like, "All right, so then should we move down the coast?" I'm talking like 3-4 hours away, fully remote, south coast of New South Wales. I got the Hermit. I pulled the Hermit. I'm like, yep, absolutely, move down the coast. They moved down the coast. Now they're engaged. They got a baby. They're living life. They're loving life. And it's just this one pull, it can just change the trajectory of someone's life altogether. Like they were hell bent on getting to Canada. So, I mean,
Yeah.
some things they can't be explained so materialistically, so scientifically, but for an individual who's deeply connected to their intuition, and you get this feedback from your environment or from a divination tool, such as tarot or astrology, whatnot, there's an alignment that takes place, and it really can just change your life. So I really implore everyone to go explore these arts. There's something else going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to say, just to add to that, like, this is the thing. Everyone has the ability to tap into the truth. Everyone has the ability to tap into their natural navigational system. And even if you're struggling, like you said, even a single pull of a card, if you have the ability to figure out just how to breathe and allow the message to come from the card, you'll know whether you're bullshitting yourself or not. Like, it's just
100%.
the way it is. Yeah.
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 100% or 98%?
No, 100%.
Okay, I'm going to ask this. I know we talked about it a little bit, but based on what's happening in the US and what's been happening for a bit, and then what's about to, I don't know, unfold, how does that show up? Like, how does that show up from an evolutionary astrological standpoint? And where do you see things going from in terms of like the West?
Oh, man. Well, so I just want to preface this in saying, like, I don't make predictions emphatically. I just kind of look at the trend and then kind of forecast based on that. So yeah, Pluto, US had its Pluto return in February as tropically, and then sidereally they're going to have it in the 2024, and I think something's really going to pop off then, but we'll see. In any case, the Pluto return for a nation is no small deal. It's a pretty big deal because it's a 248-year transit, Pluto. So when Pluto, countries don't even last that long sometimes. So when a country actually has Pluto go all the way around to where it was when it incarnated, it speaks significantly to the development of the soul of the nation. And so when I say that, what I mean is, like, when you look at a chart for any kind of issue that happens, like opening a business or getting married or a country coming into form, it's like a snapshot of what in time is unfolding, right? And so the country has a chance to manifest what was in that snapshot through its actions in subsequent time. And yeah, with the US, I mean, if you look at their chart, it's written all over it to be a bastion of freedom for all beings, a place where people can go to like everything that the ideals, the whole concept of the American dream and liberty and stuff, even though a lot of that was kind of like a lie and a narrative, it's interesting how that also aligns to the chart, though. There's a North Node in Leo in the chart, and so much Cancer energy, a Saturn in Libra, so there's like this diplomatic quality and all this stuff. But we've seen the country was founded on blood and genocide and slavery at the same time, too. Its Pluto is in Capricorn, which is an exceedingly difficult Pluto to have because there is an innate guilt in the subconscious of the nation, whether or not a lot of people want to agree to that or not, it's there. But there's also a power hungriness and a desire to be self-determined at the same time. There's all these different layers of how this is manifesting. And when I look at the US, and a lot of astrologers were expecting more to happen when this return popped off, but they threw that corona trauma bomb when Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius conjuncted in 2020, right? Where the nation was going up until that point, there was momentum being built more and more for the entrepreneur to take center stage, the individual, we could say, the self-determined being. But I think we got put back a few steps because of what's popped off. And so where things are going, it's tough to say, because I do think a lot of people are still so severely traumatized and also disoriented that they may not know where to go next, because there's so much being lobbed at people right now, especially in the States. I mean, the country's dissolving. There's all this subterfuge and intrigue happening behind the scenes. It's becoming corporatized even more and more overtly. And on one hand, I kind of see people plugging into the metaverse, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to be taking steam like they thought it would. The whole metaverse sale, it's not working as much as I think they thought it would. So from what I can tell, I mean, I do think America really has a chance to kind of come back into their own, become a little more industrious individually. And I have a feeling more permaculture technologies and sects will start coming together to kind of figure things out. If they do try to roll out the digital currency, which I think is kind of an inevitability at this point, more and more people, I think, are going to start figuring out ways to barter and get resources exchanged that don't involve money. There's so many possibilities for positive potentials of the US, but it's not going to be without a major fight. And I don't know if they entirely will win just based on the trends, from what I'm seeing, at least.
When you say entirely win, you mean like which side?
I mean, I should say the ideal of the original imprint of the nation, which was the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all beings. I do feel like that potential, the baby had that potential,
Yeah.
And so I feel like part of it still wants to develop that. If you think about evolution and transits like Pluto being as slow as they are, that kind of ideal could take a long time to manifest. But I do think we'll be seeing some moves in that direction, and we already are. A lot more people are homesteading, for instance, figuring out how to do it themselves, how to disconnect from the control system and get their fingers out of the pie, like all of these different branches of government that want their life force. So that's positive to see, I think, seeing people move away and kind of try to realize, hey, wait a second, maybe I can figure this out myself. Maybe we can get our community together and, work together on this. So there are positives for sure.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I were doing our version of that, planting trees and trying to get more into permaculture. We got chickens. My wife just went to this weekend permaculture convergence in Pasadena or Altadena, and they were learning all types of stuff and working animal husbandry and learning how to process chickens and rabbits. And, it was pretty, it was pretty cool. But I hear you there. I think it's something that's necessary. I think people need to kind of go back to the land to the degree that they want to, and it's comfortable for them, and hopefully sooner than later,
Yeah, I think people quickly forget the trajectory that the US was on before the whole corona bomb, as you put it, hit, because it definitely was seeming to be heading towards, a reclamation of some of the founding principles: individuality, freedom, entrepreneurship, capitalism, free trade, etc. But so was corona in any kind of chart? Or was that because it almost seems like that was like just an artificial, mind bomb to kind of just shift things from where they were headed. But yeah.
Well, like I was saying, how there's the natural cosmos, like the natural expression of these energies, and then there's the distortions and the corrupted versions.
Yeah.
They know astrology. They know probably a lot more than I do, as far as the depths of the cycles go.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that they knew what was coming. They could sense it, and they've been putting pieces in place for decades now. Probably even longer than that, but for decades, putting the pieces in place to keep people, just keep re-traumatizing them, so that every time they feel like they have the courage to stand up on their own and try something and become an adult, they slap the kid down. That's one of the distortions of the Pluto and Capricorn. This is why we could see it in the chart. is the dad that never wants to see their kid grow up because he might devour him. If you think about the Saturn myth, right? Saturn did not want his children to live. He wanted to devour them. So that we can see that distortion in Capricorn too. We could also see, because there was a conjunction right before. Now, I want to say we couldn't see Corona specifically. I don't think any astrologer predicted that. Maybe somebody, but not anyone that I know in the mainstream that I was following at the time. There was this conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn. And that was just like a month before Corona popped off. And when you have all that Capricorn coming together, and then you think about the south node of Jupiter in Capricorn, south node of Saturn in Capricorn, south node of Pluto in Capricorn, all of that control system energy fusing together right after or right before Saturn and Jupiter were about to conjunct in Aquarius. Basically, like what I'm saying is it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, from what I can tell, I mean, because Saturn rules Aquarius traditionally too, it just doesn't want, there is a force. It's not even necessarily these people. There's a force, which I usually just call corrupted yin, aka evil, that doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to die, and it'll do everything it can to stay alive. So we could see it in the chart, just not particularly what it was going to be. And I knew a lot of idealistic astrologers that thought this was going to be a great thing, and then this happened. So on one hand, though, I'm a little morose when I look at things sometimes. So I could kind of tell that we were going to get squeezed. I just didn't realize it was going to be on this level, though. I didn't think it was going to be this big.
Yeah. It's like when there's this, even like from parts work perspective, when there's a part of the self that is being exposed, or doesn't want to be found out, it's going to actually turn against the individual, right? It can actually, this is where the whole phenomena of psychic attacks and whatnot comes from my perspective. So like, if you think about it from like a collective level, if there was a collective psyche, so to speak, if there's this part of a collective psyche that fears being exposed to such a degree, it will go to any lengths to prevent that from happening. Just a little bit of, I don't know, some context from my view.
I wanted to see if you can comment on different astrologers, obviously, might have different political views. So the lens through which they give readings is coming through their political, their ideologies and their beliefs. So can you just comment on that? Because I feel like I could be wrong, but a lot of the astrologers I've come across, they tend to lean towards more left-leaning tendencies and beliefs, and there aren't many freedom, liberty, I'll even use the word more conservative, like astrologers out there, And so can you just comment on that? Like, what if they're seeing the same chart, but then they're interpreting it through their, through their belief? Like, how does that play out? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I noticed that too. That's like massive projection. It's one of the biggest trappings of any kind of, like when we're doing this kind of work, it's so important to try to be clear-headed and clear-minded, but we're always going to see things from our angle, right? And if our angle is conditioned by wokeism, then we're going to put a little woke film over everything that we see, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, I think part of it too is because these esoteric arts are largely yin, if you think about it, because yin mind is kind of receiving, whereas masculine mind is willing. It's kind of like receiving this, but if you have corruptions in your yin, you're not very well aware of what's going on inside of the feminine side of your psyche. On top of that, then there's going to be this victim mentality, which I could say is a distortion of Virgo in a sense. This victim mentality that wants to project villains out into the world rather than using astrology just as an example, as a tool of self-empowerment, to be able to see where solutions are. I mean, I still can't believe that a lot of like we were saying earlier, just how shocking. I honestly was very shocked to find out how many astrologers are just like not getting it. Like what's really going on here. I mean, like I've been rapped on the knuckles a few times for speaking up about it in public with other astrologers. So it's kind of just the thing. And I mean, I honestly feel like a lot of it has to do with I just feel like it's a thick film of conditioning. I mean, like when I just sense them, that's where what I get is that they don't, I mean, oh man, I just want to say it's just surprising to me how, like, I just feel like maybe they have a talent, but as far as psychological awareness goes of their own psyche, it must be lacking, because how could you see things that way if you don't know yourself, like on the deeper level? Something must be missing. But that's just my assessment. I could be wrong about that. That's just how I see it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, there were so many people that worked in quote unquote intuitive fields during that period that, when I got the jab as well. And just makes me really question your intuition personally. But that's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
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 Um,
What do you? Yeah,
yeah.
you can go.
Sure.
You go.
So, like, apparently, we just came out of a period I was reading where there was 6 planets in retrograde or something of that nature. Can you speak on retrograde, as it's such a, I guess, common term out there these days? How prevalent is it in your opinion? I guess specifically Mercury retrograde. Is the importance that mainstream places on it true or whatnot?
I would say that it's not. I think the reason why that people freak out about it is because everyone's so used to going yang, yang, yang all the time, do, do, do. They're not so used to when it's a retrograde, which is a time to be inward and introspective and kind of pay attention, right? It's move slower. It's just a feminine period of time. And it speaks so much to the psyche, how we can have all these distortions in the feminine in how people behave, lack of psychological awareness, and then they lose their shit over a retrograde Mercury or something. And we had all these retrograde planets. Mars is actually going to go retrograde soon too, and I'm kind of excited to see how that goes, just to see what happens. But to me, that's a really frustrating one, in all honesty, because it is masculine energy in a yin position, so it can be really frustrating for that energy, because it wants to move outward, not inward. But yeah, it depends on the planet, just as an example there, what's going on. And for some, it can be tough. Like, I mean, it depends on what's going on in the natal chart, for instance. Like if you have, say, a retrograde Venus in Virgo in the 7th house, I'm just thinking of somebody that I was studying recently. They're having a really hard time. Retrograde Venus wants to get its value system from within, but we live in a world that tells you what your values should be. And so it can be very confusing. But I do feel like this is why astrology is useful, because if you know that this is how you operate, you can accept yourself and know that it's just normal for you to not align with what the consensus thinks. If you have a retrograde Venus. Retrogrades are nothing to fear. It's just times to be aware that maybe, especially if it's Mercury, just to slow down a little bit and pay more attention. And don't get mad at yourself if you do kind of go into yang mode, because you're used to that being the energy most of the time during the year. Sometimes we just make a mistake. I think it's just a good time, anytime, regardless of whether it's a retrograde or not, to pay attention to how you're navigating the energies. We can feel shifts in the elements, and all of these things. One other thing I did want to mention, though, from the EA paradigm is they do see retrogrades in a chart as something that you are actually reliving in this life in order to move forward, because it was something that hasn't been adequately understood in order to move forward evolutionarily. So if you have a retrograde, it's about rebelling from conditioning. It's about reliving life experiences that kind of just keep repeating, so that you can get context and peel the layers of the onion into deeper awareness of yourself. And it's about reconditioning, right? All the re-prefixes often apply to retrogrades. So although retrogrades can be quite frustrating for a person if they're hitting certain planets, because it's like, why does this keep happening? Why do I keep experiencing this? Why do these people keep coming into my life? Like, I'm done with this. I don't want to deal with it. It can, if you have the context of why it's happening, you can actually accelerate your evolution with the retrograde energy, because it's so turned inward. So just wanted to add that too.
No, cool. I appreciate it. So, can people use like astrology and the timing of transits and whatnot to actually make better quality of decisions for themselves and even for businesses, whether it's launching a service or not or whatnot? How can that benefit someone in that regard? Because like obviously during a retrograde, like if it's a yin, you wouldn't be out there, all action, so to speak, trying to change the world. So if you can comment on that, please.
Yeah, I know people who study, it's called electional astrology.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you elect a date to either commence with a business or a marriage or buying a house or something like that. I think there's value to it. To me, for me and my path, that kind of stuff is like a kind of a big no-no, because I find that it takes you more out of yourself. And so you start relying on the tool to tell you what to do and when to think and what to think. And so on one hand, it can be helpful if you have something that you just feel called to get a hand on as far as what's the best day. But I find, for me at least, I start worrying if I have to think of, oh, this is the perfect day. One of the things I've noticed is that if I'm in tune to my own rhythm and I just decide to do something at a certain time, then I look at the transit just to see what was happening at the time. And often I'm like, wow, that was a really nice alignment. It's hitting my planets at a really nice angle. This is great. So I would say it depends on the person, but I would often caution people just not to become too reliant on that kind of stuff, because if you're endeavoring to know yourself and reconnect to yourself, it can be an impediment to that.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. I've talked to so many people and I observe in so many people where they work with a practitioner or astrologer, a seer, or a psychic. And it's like you start having a conversation like, well, but so and so said I should do this, but so and so said I should do this. Like they say it in this way that they're just like, I am a nobody. I have no ownership over myself, but this person told me to do it, so that's why I'm doing it. And I think anything that takes you away from honoring yourself, I'd be suspect. Now, that being said, it's information. Like if you hear something and it resonates and it maybe affirms something, then cool. Or maybe makes you realize like, oh shit, I was wrong, but now I'm feeling it, and it's like it's coming from you as opposed to this like you've just absolved yourself of any self responsibility.
Mhm.
You just want to like, okay, I'm putting my entire life and what I do in your hands because you said so. I'm giving my power away. And
Yeah.
that's where I go. You need to be mindful. Like, great, these people might be great, astrologers, etc. But like, if you're giving your power away, you need to check yourself.
Yeah. Actually, in EA, that's one of the biggest things that they explain is that there's a certain level of, they talk about soul development, like what age or development level you're at as a soul. And one of the steps before, I wouldn't say this is everyone across the board, but one of the traps of getting into the spiritual state after you've individuated, now you're coming to kind of like know, once you've become self-realized, God-realized, that whole thing. Eventually, because of the abilities that you can gain as you develop this deeper awareness, one of the temptations is to say, I'm the one you need to come to get all the answers, right? And that's such a trap. We should always be, at least from my opinion, always pointing the way home to the person so they can come home to themselves. The last thing I want, it's one of the most, like for me, it's one of the things that I've been carrying for many lives, or at least it's coded in my DNA, because I'm not 100% on the past life thing, to be honest with you. I think there's a potential, but I know it's in my memory at least, is that there's a deep pain in getting people to do things they didn't want to do, because it never really satisfies you when you find out that they did it because they were coerced or because they thought they had to do it that way, and then you find out it was the wrong thing for them. It's to me, it's like such a sin. I feel terrible. I just want to empower people, right? So they can, and also it makes me feel better because it's like, I don't have it on me. I don't have the weight of telling this person what to do. Like I said, I have an Aries moon, so I'm an Aries mom. You figure it out. I'll help you be strong so you can figure it out. But I don't want to get my hands messy, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it
Yeah.
does make sense. And I'm curious, actually, in the context of the last few years, how many people went that route and told people they needed to do something or force them or coerce them, and then maybe had their moment of awakening. And what are they going through now,
Mm.
Or maybe they told someone to do something and that person had a reaction or whatever the case may be. And then you have to live with that. And so, again, if you just bring a person or support them to just take ownership and go back to themselves and make the decision for themselves. That's what it's about. Like I hate this guru shit,
Yeah.
like I'm just not into it. And anytime anyone in my life is trying to like compliment me, whether it's a client that I've worked on, like I'll take it in, I'll receive it, and I cut the projection field, and I'm just like, I'm human and I fuck up and I have issues, like don't put all your shit on me. Like my goal is to get you to really understand and love yourself on the deepest levels and honor that and keep moving forward in life, and I think that's the way to be. So it's cool to hear you say that, and that it's kind of aligned in EA as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So people, like, obviously from a traditional mainstream standpoint, place a lot of emphasis specifically on their sun sign.
Mm.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, okay. So the sun sign is pretty important if you think about it. Just looking at the solar system, it is the central body in the solar system. It speaks to the purpose that we're actualizing in this life, right? So that's pretty important if you're someone who's choosing to be self-determined, to creatively self-actualize yourself, to you could say be your own sun, to shine. Of course, everyone's sun is going to be a different element, and there's different properties there. So how it shines is going to be very different from someone else. Like the typical Leo is going to be like, hello, and everyone's going to be like, oh, bask in your light. Whereas a Capricorn sun like me, I shine by being happy with my work and getting my work done and like making sure I have integrity and stuff like that. And trying to relax and not control things too much, because natural Capricorn is not a control freak, but we also have that karma coming in. So yeah, I mean, the sun is
What would a Gemini be like?
Gemini. Anything it wants to be in the moment, I suppose. Right?
Yeah, sure. That sounds right.
Yeah, they're fun though. That's the fun part, because they have that amorality bent. They get to just try on all the hats. Right. So that's the cool thing about Gemini, because it also keeps Capricorn on its toes, because it's in conjunct to Capricorn in society. So it's sort of like it's mutable air. So I just think of it as like a tornado 1 minute and a nice caressing breeze the next moment, and like all these different things. I honestly think Gemini is a fun one, because they get to be anything. And also at the same time, multiple things if they want to. Like literally, it's kind of cool.
That seems quite accurate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, well, we're at this game. What would a Scorpio be?
Well, like it always depends on the whole chart, right? If going to look at those things. But I mean, a Scorpio obviously is going to be like the one who wants to figure shit out. And not only that, to get powerful, to become more powerful, to figure out how to break the limit and become more, right? Like they're here literally to transform. Like they're so synonymous with the soul itself. So Scorpio is going to be intrinsically linked to the soul's desire, whether they're conscious of it or not. Yeah.
Everything you just said described our business partnership quite accurately.
It's an interesting combo, Scorpio and Gemini, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. And a 5-1 profile and a 6-2 profile. Now I just got to get all my EA. Yeah, I'm a 5-1. He's a 6-2. I don't know if I'm assuming you know a little bit about human design because you brought it up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I dabble in it. I don't know tons, but I do know like the 5-1 profile, because that's my husband, and the 6-2 profile. That's a new one to me, but it sounds like. Well, I mean, isn't the 6 like
it's a role model hermit,
kind of like the person, the wise man kind of a thing? Yeah, and then the 2 is like kind of like relationship oriented in a sense, isn't it? I don't know. I get that one mixed up because it's kind of paradoxical to me. The 2, I don't know.
Yeah, the 2 is like innate gifts, like naturally gifted in ways that can't explain, could just do things that doesn't really know where they came from, so to speak. Is that right, Erasmus?
Yeah, I would say that has an element to it. Obviously, the 2 is known as the hermit too, so they like to have their space, like to be in their world, and the 6 is the role model. But the 6th line goes through 3 stages though. So from age 0 to 30, it's a 3, where it's going through the experimentation process, trial and error process, and bumping into life, bumping into relationships, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and then it goes to the secondary phase where it kind of steps back and wants to kind of take all that subjective experience and turn into objective wisdom over time. And then really when they get to 50 years old, now, I mean, these dates can be a little arbitrary. They really step fully into their role as the role model to share and give wisdom into the world. But again, like all these different modalities, they just shine a light on things that are so cool. And like for me, my favorite part about human design is just like the mechanical elements of strategy and authority, like honoring like, oh wow, this is your unique decision making process. like if you honor these basic things, it's going to support the deconditioning process, and that's what I like about it, because you can get really complicated with all these things, but I like kind of coming back to the simplicity as well. It's like, what can you focus on? What can any person really tap into? You don't need to get into the nuance of like every gate and the line, and yeah, okay, you can, it's cool, but the foundations are really powerful as well. So anyways, but like, again, I love it. Like I love getting readings. I love learning from different people and their gifts. And every time I've had one, every time I'm just like, fuck, this is
every
so
time.
crazy. Every
I
time.
I had an evolutionary astrology reading in January, which
Oh yeah.
literally changed my life. We didn't even start our group coaching program at this point in time. I discovered the significance of myself having a Capricorn moon as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, pretty much we just went all in building this podcast into a fully flourishing business, and things have really, paid off, and we'll continue down that road for sure. So that's another thing that's changed and shifted my trajectory. I should go listen to that again, actually, for sure. Erasmus, I want to ask you a question. Are you willing to take a guess at Sarah's human design type?
No, I don't really. I'm not really like a guesser of
Ready?
human
3,
design.
2, 1.
2-4. I don't know.
No, type.
Oh, type. Oh, I would think more a
Projector?
projector,
Yeah.
but
Oh really?
but I don't know. I don't know. I don't really like. I don't spend time with you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm a manifesting generator,
That
I
was one of the
guess.
two for me.
And
There
I'm
we
a
go.
1-4. I'm a 1-4.
So okay, so I got the 4
1-4.
right. I was like
Wow.
2-4,
Yeah.
1-4.
Mhm.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool. Yeah, well, sometimes I think like people that are in guidance positions, like as a guide, I like just and they're like a really nice present energy. I'm just like, okay, like they're a projector, but who knows? My wife's a projector, 3-5. Anyways, this is all stuff so cool. I'm gonna hit you up afterwards though, because I've never had a evolutionary astrology reading, so I'd like to have one.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
definitely do that.
Yeah.
And is there a way that like you could, I guess, work with people conjunctively, like together? Is there like a joint chart or a joint reading which can highlight different avenues as well for a partnership?
Yeah, I love them. They're composite charts. You can do synastry too, which is to look at two charts together to see how they're interacting together. But the composite chart is really amazing because it takes the two charts and blends it into a third chart. So you're looking at the relationship almost as if it's a separate entity. And it shows the dynamics the relationship will enter into, not just in the outer world with other people or whatever, but even the dynamics of the relationship itself and what it's here to kind of create. And it can really help a couple understand why certain dynamics are occurring and how to navigate a relationship. So I think they're great, especially for parents, but of course, couples, anyone who wants to know each other. You can do multiples as well, put multiple people together and create composites, though I'm not very knowledgeable in that one. I just know that it's a possibility. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh. Well, on that note, I don't know if you have any other questions, but I'd love to know, like, how can people get in touch with you and reach out to you and learn more about you?
Yeah, well, you can go to my website. It's adeptguidance.com. I also have a YouTube channel that I'm not really posting on a lot these days, but I would recommend if anyone's interested to subscribe because I more than likely will be adding content in the coming months. So those are my main two. I don't really go on social media a ton at the moment, but that might change. So those would be the places to go if you want to connect to me.
Well, at least you have a YouTube channel.
I was got removed. Yeah.
We got
Oh,
deleted.
really?
Our channel got deleted a few weeks ago.
Oh, so it was recent. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's all good. It's just, I don't know. I kind of like it. I feel like more badass. Like we're doing something right.
Yeah, well, that's true. I speak very esoterically in mine, so that's kind of how I've been able. Plus, I don't know. I'm not. It's not like I got a ton of subs or anything. But yeah, I kind of avoid certain things
Words.
just so that I can get the message across without getting
I get it.
using the words. But yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Any final words you have for our audience?
Yes, Sarah, drive us home here.
Okay. Well, I just want to just reaffirm that regardless of who anyone is, it really is worth your while to get to know who you are. I was somebody, who had a lot to deal with growing up. It was really difficult for me. Most of my life was really difficult. And I won't say that my life is a breeze now, but I'll definitely say that I'm much more empowered and a lot more in tune with who it is I actually am, because of the fact that I was willing and am willing and completely dedicated to knowing the truth of who I am, regardless of how much it hurts. So that, the thing is that the pain is kind of a lie in a lot of ways. The fear of self-knowledge can stop us from admitting things about ourselves. Humility is not about wriggling around on our stomach and being servile to others. It's about being open to knowing the truth and being willing to be wrong so that we can be more calibrated to what is true. When we do that, when we're sincere, the power that you come into contact with, it's like you don't even have to try to connect to these things. They just reveal themselves to you so that you can reemerge. Like the thing is that a lot of people may not be aware that they're afraid of their power, but that is often what it is, because for many lifetimes, and what is coded in us as far as memory, is that it's unsafe to be fully empowered. But at this point in time, in reality, that's no longer true for most of us. It's worth our while to go there. And I sincerely believe that to change this world for the positive, to really make real changes, it's not selfish to get to know yourself and then be yourself. It's literally the only and best thing you can do.
Kaboom. Beautifully said. That sentiment echoes everything that we're about and all the reasons that we started this platform in the first place. Every single person listening, start pulling on that unique thread of authenticity. What are all your life experiences culminating and pointing you towards? And divination arts such as evolutionary astrology can really help ground that for you. These are grounding tools. They're not woo-woo tools. They're grounding you. They're embodying you. So I really encourage every single person, if you feel the call, head to Adept Guidance and check out Sarah's work and get a reading and discover yourself and begin to pull that thread. You're here. You got, who knows if it's one life or not, but I know it's a short time. So go start doing the great work and diving into the mystery of who you are on a much deeper level. Sarah, we've loved this conversation. We really appreciate your time. And to everyone listening, we'll catch you next time. Take care. Thank you so much for listening. We love having conversations like that. This is a very diverse podcast here. We cover pretty eclectic topics from week to week. Just want to remind you guys, if you're getting value out of what we're sharing and you want to dive a little bit deeper, please consider applying for our private membership community, Friends of the Truth, where you can come into our, inner private world, our inner community, get 3 calls a month, and connect with some of the highest integrity community you can imagine. So if you feel the call, head to friendsofthetruth.co and apply there. Also, we will be opening Rise Above the Herd one more time. This is our signature course in a couple weeks, and this will be our final run for the year. You can apply to join the course waitlist at riseabovetheherd.co if you feel called in that direction. Much love to you all. We'll see you next week.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time, they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean, fast forward in evolution to a place where we can share our confusions. Yeah, 450 BC, I'm sharing tea with confusion.